Crop rotation in the vegetable garden. What is it, and should you be practicing it growing your vegetables? Now the guys up in the Midwest and the North that grow a lot of corn and beans, that's a good rotation there. They rotate their beans and the corn every year. It's not perfect, but it's a good rotation for them. Here in the South, the farmers will rotate cotton and peanuts. There again, it's not perfect, but it's pretty much the best they can do. They have these crops they rotate in and out where they don't grow the same crop in the same spot every year. And that's pretty much the definition of crop rotation. Do this for several different reasons. It helps manage your nutrients a lot better, and also disease control, specifically soil-borne diseases, and it also helps control our insects. So we can actually do a better job of rotation because we have more families of plants that we deal with. And the theory is not to plant the same family of plant in the same spot except maybe every 3 or 4 years. So in a perfect world, you would have a 3 to 4 year rotation where you would not plant tomatoes back in the same spot for 3 to 4 years, and you would rotate different families of plants in that rotation to help keep that chart or that flow working perfectly. But you know what? We don't live in the perfect world. And just like me with my garden spot, I don't have a lot of area to deal with or a lot of plots to deal with. Now I do have my garden broken up in plots, and it does help me to manage my rotation a lot. Where used to back in the day, I just had one big spot and I would go out there in the spring and the fall and I would plant it. Breaking it up in these plots helps me manage it way better than it did in the past. And if you're using raised beds, the same thing goes for you. It helps you manage that rotation better than just doing this big open plot of gardening the way our forefathers did. I'm going to show you a couple strategies that we do here to help with our crop rotation that maybe you can tighten up a little bit, but work a little tighter schedule in there to help you do crop rotation even if you have less plots or less resources to do it. This is a perfect example of how we've tightened up that rotation schedule so we can fit more things in our plots, but do a good job with rotation as well. We planted these zipper peas this fall in a spot where we had our spring sweet corn. So just as soon as my sweet corn got over with, I come in here with a machete and chop the corn stalks off, and I let this plot sit for just a little bit, and then we come back in here and seeded these zipper peas in. And that is perfect because corn and peas are in a different family. Corn uses a lot of nitrogen, uses a lot of nutrients. Peas does not use a lot of nitrogen, so we was able to scavenge some off from that spring crop there, and also we don't have to worry about the same diseases or insects, and we can help bust that cycle up. And you know what? These cowpeas, such as zippers, they grow a lot better in the fall anyway. So instead of just letting this plot sit out for a year and rotating to a different crop next spring, we can tighten that window up. We can get a fall crop out of it, but yet we can still practice good crop rotation. And yet here's another example. So we used fall ambrosia corn that we planted behind the plot where we had our spring tomatoes. Corn is probably one of the best crops to work in your rotation because it is a monocot, and just about all the other ones that I mentioned earlier, with the exception of onions, are dicots. So corn don't face the same diseases or have the same insect or disease problem as most of your other plants. So that's the reason corn is used a lot in different rotations. Now tomatoes, which we all love to grow, are notorious for having a lot of soil-borne diseases such as blight. And these can be managed a lot with these rotations. So tightening up the rotation using a fall corn crop is going to help us dramatically keep this plot in a good rotation. Now we won't come back next spring with tomatoes in here. We'll kind of move it a little bit further than that. But this does help us tighten up our rotation a little bit and get the most out of each plot by using these fall crops to work in there as a rotation. So the takeaway here is, yes, practice crop rotation as much as you can. Never plant the same thing right behind the same plant. It's going to cause you a lot of problems if you do that. So try to rotate somewhat. Now, don't get caught up in being perfect. We just don't live in a perfect world, and sometimes we have to deal with what we got. We have to work with what we have here. So try to practice as much good crop rotation as you can, and use that by maybe implementing some fall plantings in there. That's going to increase your harvest as well. But don't get caught up on trying to be perfect there. Just try to work with it as much as you can to make sure your garden produces for you. And if you don't fall into that 4-year rotation, hey, it's okay. Just do the best you can.